thanks to them.
Conversations at this gym in Tottenham can get very political. But the sentiments expressed here are not necessarily landing any blows in Westminster.
Yeah, I feel people feel incredibly disenfranchised and disconnected. They feel like political parties don't represent them enough.
It really does feel like a men's private club, you know what I mean, where they kind of influence everything and we're just left out in the dark.
Derek, the gym's owner and a mentor to many of its young people, fears they're being left behind by government and having to fend for themselves.
It's everywhere, so Scotland feels alienated from Westminster, but people who are like, 5-10 miles down the road are still equally as alienated. And what can change that? I think, again, young people can change it, but at the moment, the politics that a lot of young men and women have got to deal with is getting from home to school, and from school to home.
This disillusionment goes some way towards explaining why black and minority ethnic voters, as well as those aged 18 to 25, are less likely to vote than all other groups. And the figures are stark. According to recent research, 57% of 18 to 24-year-olds did not vote in the last general election. That's more than double the number of over 65-year-olds. Registered black and minority voters had a turnout of only 51%, and 24% of eligible black voters are not on the voter register, compared to just 14% of eligible white voters. Black people are simply not voting. According to the campaign group Operation Black Vote, getting out to vote is more than just a matter of principle. It has very real consequences.
When you look at 50 of the most marginal seats in the country, 30 of them could easily be influenced by the black and minority ethnic vote.
Could that vote actually sway the outcome? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's even bigger than that. That vote could decide who wins and who loses in this forthcoming election. You know, when you consider that Theresa May has a working majority of 12, and we could significantly influence 30, maybe even 70, then we are big players in this dynamic.
Many young people are politicised, but I think there's something about the often arcane language of politics and the way it's conducted that they find alienating. This debating event, or Democracy Cafe in South London, is run by young people for young people in an attempt to counter voter apathy.
One of the barriers for young people not voting is just because they didn't get to learn about it enough. If we were taught about it in schools from early primary school, secondary school, I think more young people would be involved in voting.
There are a lot of adults who immediately think, oh, young people never vote, so they shouldn't even be told certain things, or they shouldn't even be, sort of let into certain things or know certain things.
But how would more voting among these groups affect the outcome? Traditionally, both young and minority voters have been associated with the Labour Party. Recent polling has found that's changing. In 1997, Labour received 80% of the black and ethnic minority vote. Data from YouGov suggests 1 in 4 now support the Tories.
A lot of my friends that I went uni with are actually voting Conservative, and some of them actively support the Conservative Party outside of even just voting. And part of that is because actually they've gone on to start businesses or they've gone on to work for businesses and they've seen the business benefits of voting for that party.
It's a serious problem for democracy when elections are essentially hijacked by specific demographic groups. In this case, over 65s, white voters, as well as other categories like those who own their own homes. It undermines the entire credibility of the parliamentary process. And it seems that the changes required to remedy that simply aren't happening. It may require something more radical, and I think it's compulsory voting to set real change in motion.
I absolutely think people ought to be compelled to not only vote, but to register to vote. So if you have a national insurance number, you should be registered to vote automatically. You know, there are millions of people not even registered, some 7 million people, not even on the electoral register, and 7 million people without a voice. How can that be a dynamic democracy?
There are 25 countries with compulsory voting laws, including Australia, whose turnout in the last federal election was 95%, as well as Brazil, Peru and Belgium.
It matters.
It matters.
It matters.
It matters.
It's an idea I discussed with Director of Research with the young activist group Bite the Ballot, Kenny Imafidon.
It matters.
I have come around lately to quite a radical idea which I think might solve all the problems you're talking about. I think compulsory voting could actually be the answer.
Terrible idea.
Why?
I don't feel like we're in that sort of state of emergency where we need to consider compulsory voting. I feel like maybe once after we get people the education they need in school, and then we have a generation of people being taught that in school.
So you don't think it's that big a problem, the fact that the young people and people from black and minority ethnic backgrounds are so underrepresented in voting? You don't think that we've reached crisis point yet?
I feel like we could do that whole process without making it compulsory. Because at the end of the day, people have a right to vote and a right not to. And I feel like sometimes we have to allow people to have their right if they choose not to vote as well.
It was once said that in a democracy, it's not an election itself, but the act of voting that is democracy's defining moment. And this democracy is leaving far too many behind.